So I'm very interested in what the course that you're going to be doing, and I believe it's going to be given to schools in the Western Cape. You're going to be doing it through schools in the Western Cape, which I'm so excited about. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, I know not every one of our listeners has read your book, and I want to just get a feel, give them a feel for what it was like to be in that professional space, where everything was just handed to you, everything that you could even think about and the things that you couldn't think about. And then maybe tell us a bit about that empty feeling that you got and having to kind of rip the band-aid off and go like, I'm done. Like, tell
Yeah,
me of it.
so yeah. I mean, I guess as probably as most youngsters back then, maybe still now in my early 20s, I didn't really think too much about life and who was I and what was it all about. And I was lucky. I ended up very early on. My first ever job was the fitness trainer with the South African cricket team. I think I was 23 years old. I gave up my playing career. I hopped on an aeroplane and I spent sort of 8 months of the year traveling around the world with international cricketers, staying in five-star hotels, meeting the Queen in Mandela, and being invited to getting golden circle tickets at festivals and concerts.
Mm,
So really
mm,
living the high life and pretty well
mm,
paid. Everything was paid for, so
mm,
I didn't have
mm,
expenses. I had 4 months of the year holiday. Um, and from the outside, certainly, I was living the life,
mm,
partying up a storm, fit as can be. Sometimes I was single, had a, a cousin in most cities that I would go and visit on nights off, and it was a great life. And I remember at some point, sort of 4 years into it, feeling and touching an emptiness. Like I've got everything I could possibly wanted as a 26-year-old, but there was something missing. And I looked around at the cricketers and I thought I could sense a something missing within quite a few of
mm.
the players, even though we were
Wow.
living the high life.
Yeah.
And I even sensed within the team, Bob Woolmer was the coach at the time. He was the most innovative coach in the world. Hansi Cronje was the captain. He totally believed in fitness. That's why I got the job as the first fitness trainer in world cricket. We were the fittest team in the world. There were 7 players with university degrees. You won't find that in any cricket team anywhere in the
No.
world now. So we had it all, but I just felt there was something missing. And I had no clue what that something missing was within me or within what I thought I could see in some players or the team. But I just knew I had to get out of there. And even when I, resigned, people said to me, "There must be something better you're resigning for, or is there something's gone wrong that you have to leave? Is there a problem with the team?" And even I didn't know enough to be able to say no. I just have this emptiness that I've touched, and I'm just moved to just to move.
Yeah.
And my decision was to put a backpack on my back, have a certain budget, and travel as long as I could on that budget. And I ended up traveling for 6 months through Southeast Asia on a budget of accommodation, travel, food, all included, $8 a day. So I really
Listen,
lived with the people. I traveled on third class buses, and I was anonymous in that world. No one in Laos and Vietnam and Indonesia and Malaysia, no one wanted to know how many degrees I had. I had 4 university degrees at the time. Nobody cared. Nobody cared that I
mm,
was in the high life. And, they just cared about, am I a good guy? Am I an interesting guy? And if not, they would move on. No one asked me,
love it.
what do you do?
Yeah.
So, and then
Yeah.
I got to sort of realize that all that stuff that I had, the degrees and the so-called fame or fame by proxy, working with famous people, actually meant nothing. And
Mm,
that really started my journey of asking, okay,
mm.
so who then am I and what is this all about? And so the
Gosh,
journey deepened. And then
began.
life got complicated. It was so easy when I was living blissfully unaware and just fooling around in the playground of the ego. Life was easy and fun. But when I started
Yeah.
asking questions and diving deeper, it was more difficult, but
Mm.
more rewarding.
But the thing is that when you do reach that stage of, wait a minute, and you start asking those questions, life does get complicated because you kind of fly in the face of everything that everyone else is doing. You kind of are going against the grain, and that's kind of what I noticed in your book. There was this the systematic shift into kind of going against what had always been done, and now we're going to shift that and change our thinking a bit. And it's always hard to swim upstream. It's like, but it's worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
swimming
Yeah.
upstream is worth it.
Yeah. So I think I'm lucky in that I'm naturally question convention.
Love that.
I don't like to move with a sheep, even though it's safe and comfortable. So I'm comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing the envelope and questioning the status quo. And I think that's probably what got me to walk the journey that I did. And even still today, when I, work with athletes and they've always done something the same way in sport. I step back, and one of the questions I ask myself, if an alien came down to Earth now and I had to explain to them why these people are doing what they were doing, would it make sense to that alien? And if it didn't quite make sense, then I'd say, okay, so then how would I present it that it actually made sense? So that was just sort of a framework that I've always used and I still do. Is like, does it actually make sense? Just because we've
Yeah.
always been doing it, what would
Is it
an
actually
alien say?
right?
Yeah.
That's like I love that because so I love change. Like a lot of people don't love change. I love change. I love the idea of reinventing, shifting thinking. I love the idea of being out of my comfort zone and trying something new. The more uncomfortable I am, the better, because then I know that I'm growing. Would you say, and I just want to ask you this before we get into your course, I just want to ask you, do you think that it takes a lot of courage and discipline? Like I know it comes naturally to you, but now let's say there's someone who knows that they need to shift, right? They know that they have to now step into that discomfort and change the way they're doing things personally. And we know that you've worked with a lot of people over the years. You've coached, you've been a keynote speaker, you like do all the things, right? What do you say to someone who's kind of like, I know that I need to shift. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this, but I know that I need to. Like, what is your go-to for them? How would you
Yeah.
start?
So, I mean, I think I would start with, um, let's look at what's important for you. What is your natural makeup? Because we all have different values. Some people value security and stability,
Right.
and tradition. Some people value change and innovation and creativity. You can look at all the different psychological models there are out there, frameworks to help people sort of understand themselves a bit better. At a time, there was insights discovery was the big thing, and now Enneagram and the nine numbers is quite big. Or
Yes.
there's so many different styles, there's so many different value systems. So the first thing is to help someone understand that if there is some tension or some stress within you doing something you think you should be doing something else, like the tension is between probably your natural disposition or makeup or value system,
Nurture.
brain
Yeah.
style, your nurturing, and your current reality is suggesting maybe there's a little stretch or an opportunity to learn. So first of all, to help person plug into who am I naturally? If we just take an insights
Yeah.
discovery, some people love
Yeah.
change and some people love stability and some people love to be exact and all the different, and it's like we can be all things, but we all have a natural default. So
Mm.
I can't expect everyone to have the same relationship with change that, for example, you and I might have.
Mm.
But the question I would ask, particularly if someone is on a journey of growth or development or success, on a professional journey, whatever it might be, the question I ask is, do you think you will be the same person in 5 years' time?
Wow.
Or in
Good
a sports
question.
context, I'll say, do you think if you're a coach, do you think in 5 years' time, coaches are going to be doing the same thing you're doing now? Or do you think an athlete, or do you think a teenager, an 18-year-old is going to be doing the same thing now as what they'll be doing in 5 years' time? And the answer is if the answer is yes, they'll be doing the same thing, then don't change. You're on the right path. But if
Okay.
the answer is, yeah, I think people are going to be doing things a little bit smarter, The next question is, okay, so
Mm.
do you want to wait around and see what the smart people are going to figure out, and you'll figure out in 5 years' time, but you'll be behind? Or how about going and being near the front of the curve? Let's go and find out what those things
Love
might
that.
be. And that might, if you're interested in being near the front of the curve in whatever the game you are, whether it's your business, your career, your sport, your parenting,
Mm.
whatever it might be,
Mm.
do you want to be near the front of the curve, meaning more effective, more impactful, more self-aware than most people? And it's very easy actually these days to get into the top 10% of parents, athletes, coaches, because people are lazy, they take shortcuts. We're really not
Mm.
that smart as a human species, as a human race at the moment. So to
Yeah.
get to the front of the curve, the good news is it's actually quite easy.
Yeah. Well, you say that. And then I think about some of my clients that I deal with, and I'm like, I don't know if they would agree with you, but sorry, I'm actually, while you're talking, I'm making notes because I feel like I'm picking your brain and I'm taking some really lovely nuggets out of them and just leaving them on my page. I heard something the other day, and it kind of speaks to you. You've always had this, and you speak about what comes to you naturally. What is your, like, I heard a friend the other day who I interviewed, and he said it's your nurture. Follow your nurture, like the thing that excites you, the thing that makes you you. Like, and you've pretty much said the same thing. And if I look at your bio, which is incredible, but then I read your book, and I'm kind of going, there is a deep passion in you to develop other people, to help people. Like, I feel like part of you just wants to see people succeed and be the best that they can be and use their potential and step into themselves and really kind of ignite that this is who I am, this is where I'm going, this is what I want to do. Um, where do you think that that passion comes from? I mean, have you always had that, or was that like a situation in your life that you went, oh wait, this is this is what I like? How, like, has it always been there?
I mean, that's a good question. So, yes, I have found through everything I've done, the most common theme. I was a fitness trainer once. The theme of the fitness trainer was I learned all this stuff as a sports scientist, and let me help you now get fitter so you can be better. I worked with street kids. I've got all these contacts and ideas. Let me
Yes.
help you live a better life. As a
Yes.
sports coach, as a mental coach, I've got all this experience. I've got this knowledge. I've studied this stuff. Let me pass it on so you can be better. So everything I've done has always been about helping other people get better. Now, whether that was
Right.
a nurture, I think we all are a combination of nurture and nature,
Mm-hmm.
what we were born with and what we were conditioned with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, even working with people, it's not necessarily that important to understand where does it come from. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
more important. This is how I am, and let me see how I can work with it as best I can. And yeah, so for me, maybe it was something I was born with, and it was only when I later in my life, in my 30s, when I studied a second master's degree in business coaching and understood really the principles and philosophies of business coaching, I looked
Yes.
back at my father and I went, wow, my dad never told me what to do.
Mm.
When I came to him with a problem, he would ask me questions as if he didn't know the answer. And it would be this long conversation where he would constantly ask me
Yes.
questions, and eventually I'd get to the answer. And that would seem to be the thing. And I remember walking away frustrated, going, why didn't you just tell me that up front? Why do you have to go through this whole process of getting me to figure it out? And only when I was 30 did I go, maybe there was something. And I
In
spoke to
that.
him about it. He didn't have any coaching training. That was just
Mm.
his natural disposition. He had a dad who told him what to do all the time, and he didn't want to do the
Mm.
same thing. So he thought, I'm not going to tell my
Mm.
kids what to do. I'm going to help them find their own way. So maybe I think I got parented. I was lucky. I got parented by one of,
Yeah.
life's true natural coaches.
Right. I'm just thinking, as you were talking about those conversations with your dad, I was thinking back to when my kids were little. I remember a time when um, they would do homework, and I would say, do you need some help? Like, I am available. I will help you with the things. And I could see that they was like, my son in particular, he would be struggling with something. He would be, kind of trying to work something out, whether it was maths or history or whatever it was. He was like struggling. And I'd come in to kind of give it, and he would put his little hand up. I mean, we're talking like he's like 7. Do you know what I mean? And he goes, no, don't give me the answer. Don't give me the answer. And I look at him and I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'll work it out myself. I'll work it out myself. And I go, oh, okay, cute. That's fine.
Yeah.
What do you think? Some, and I don't want to say all parents, because what do you think are some of the mistakes that parents, before we get into the sport thing, I want to know, what do you think are some of the mistakes that parents make today with their kids? Just thinking about your dad and the way that he dealt with you, thinking about my kids and the way that they would say, no, mommy, thanks, but no thanks. What do you think some of the mistakes are that parents do today when it comes to that kind of thing?
So, sure. I mean, you're asking me a question as a flawed parent myself, with only a very
But we all
limited,
are. It's fine. It's fine.
with very limited parenting experience. So I can speak with some authority on parenting kids around sports performance.
Yeah.
Around what are the mistakes that parents make in general. I'm very hesitant to step into the expert role because I'm certainly not. But if I were to extract, there's always lessons, and the parenting the parenting around sport that I speak to, there's some universal principles that apply. And I can comfortably say that probably the biggest mistake, and it's unconscious, is unconscious parenting. It's just doing what we...
Paddy, give me a second. Give me a second. Guys, can you just... Unconscious parenting. If you're listening to our podcast today, please write that down. If you're a parent, unconscious parenting. Paddy, I love that. Okay, go back. So you said unconscious parenting, and then?
So what is unconscious parenting? And again, there's probably a whole lot of different definitions you'd find, but it's doing what our parents did to us without actually questioning our way, or it's we all have our own natural way and style of parenting, and there isn't a right one or a wrong one. But unconscious parenting is just doing my way on my kids and not actually checking in, does my way actually align with what my kids' preferences and requirements are for growing into the best version of themselves. So it's doing stuff without questioning. It's saying yes. Is the yes my yes, or is the yes actually serving them? Is it my no to serve my comfort, my sense of control, my stress levels, or is it the no genuinely serving my child's growth to become a self-secure, self-sufficient, high-functioning adult? And too often we impose our way and what we think is best, because there is no parenting manual. There is no one best way. But the unconscious parenting is, I'm just doing what I think, and I'm not really plugging into what does my kid actually need in this moment.
So for someone who is a flawed parent, that is a very astute answer. Because having walked the road a little ways with my kids, they are not shy to tell me, not shy at all to tell me where I messed up, like where I was not serving or aligning with them.
You're very lucky, and your kids are lucky that you have the relationship that they can give you that honest feedback. And you've obviously created an environment where that's allowed. There are a lot of kids who don't feel comfortable or safe to tell their parent that that's not working. I don't like that. That doesn't work for me. If you did it differently, it would work even better. And certainly from a sporting perspective, research that's out there, and there's not a lot of it, but there's a few extensive studies, suggest that up to or over 1 in 3 parents actually ends up undermining their kids' sport experience. But
Really?
that's over 1 in 3, yet nobody thinks they are that one. And nobody is that one deliberately or intentionally. It's just the unconscious way of being ends up really not working for more than 1/3 of kids. And it doesn't
Wow.
mean that the other 2/3 get it right all the time. It's just the net
Mm.
score is more positive than negative.
I was pushed really hard in sport. And there were many years later, I asked my dad, I was like, Jeepers, why did you push me so hard? And he said, you had this raw talent. Everything you touched, you just excelled at. And I was like, I didn't love it. Like, it wasn't lovely. Do you know what I mean? Like, please. I was so nervous, so anxious. So, like, nobody knew that, though. Everyone thought I was really confident. When it came to our kids, we refused to push them. We absolutely refused, because I kind of said, I remember saying to Ant, if they want this, they will come to us. They
Yeah.
will say, I want to do X. And it happened with my son. His twin sister, also very good at sport, but also was quite anxious, like on the tennis court. It wasn't ever going to be a
There
career.
isn't a kid
Do you know
out
what I
there who's
mean?
not there isn't a kid out there who's not anxious on
Yeah.
the court, so, or on
But
whatever they do.
when it came to my eldest daughter, she very good swimmer, tiny, tiny, tiny little thing, but amazing swimmer. And yes, we did the extra swimming and we did the what. But she actually, in high school, she said, Mama, I actually don't want to be a swimmer anymore. I said, cute, that's fine. Swim for fun. I don't care. Like, if that's what you want, that's what we do. If you want to come back to it later, if you want to step into it again later, let me know. We'll do that. My son came to us in grade 5. He was like, so, why didn't I get sent for Western Province trials for tennis? I looked at her. I said, I don't know. Do you want to go for Western Province trials for tennis? And he was like, yeah, I want to know why I wasn't sent. And I was like, well. So I made an inquiry. Needless to say, I said to him, dude, apologies, but you'll have to wait till next year. You're going to play your little butt off and you're going to practice and you're going to do the things. And if that's what you want to do, then that's what we will do. And I'll never forget when he actually did go for trials, and he ended up making, I think it was Western Province B tennis in grade 6. It was the first time he had ever gone out for it, the first time he'd even tried, but he'd been playing tennis for a while. And I remember there was a wonderful Afrikaans lady, and there was this 2-hour final match that he played. I mean, the poor oak, he was like very new to this whole arena, and suddenly he's in the final and playing this match, and he lost the match, but he walked off that court, and this wonderful Afrikaans mom, she took him into this bear hug, and she said, "O my lewe, kind, waar was jy al die jare?" And all he could say was, "I wasn't ready." And I was like, great answer. You weren't. And when you were, you said, okay, now I'll do it. Now I'll do it. He still loves playing tennis, still plays, goes out. Does he want to make a career out of it? No. No, he does not. But he does love it. And that's what brings me into this sport in schools, because it is very close to my heart, and it is something that I've experienced in both ways. So I've experienced being pushed really hard. My husband wasn't pushed very hard. I've competed at provincial levels. And so when it came to my kids, I switched it up. I was like, we're not going to do the pushy thing. We're not doing it. I trust my kids enough to know that if they want to do something, and it is something they want to take to the next level, then we'll do that. So tell me about the sport thing. Tell me about parents in sport and what you're seeing across the board. Because I know what I saw back in the day. What are you saying?
So, if I just go back to where this journey of parents in sports, because that's not what I set out to do. Probably 15 years ago, a headmaster from Western Province Prep School, Gary Kirsten, was a really highly regarded, still a very highly regarded headmaster, said, Paddy, won't you come in and spend some time with our coaches? We're a small school, we're competing against much bigger schools, we're always being beaten. So we want to try something different. And I spent an afternoon coaching his coaches to shift their coaching approach to a more knowledge age, contemporary, athlete-centered coaching approach, as opposed to the old school command and control, instruction-based coach-centered coaching. And the coaches took to it beautifully. They took it onto the field. The kids were a little bit confused because things were a bit different. But Gary came to me a couple of weeks later and he said, the kids are really enjoying it. The coaches are loving it, but the parents they're getting even more nervous because they're not seeing the coaches doing what they think coaches should doing or always have been doing. And I said, you know what, let's get the parents in. Let me talk to the parents and explain to them. And little did I know, that was 15 years ago, the conversation with the parents and with the coaches about the parents, I started understanding that this seems to be a really big problem. The coaches were saying some of our problems are actually with parents. Kids started talking about the problems they were having with parents. I started doing the research. It was such an impactful session that I was invited. One of the parents had a kid at another school. I went to another school. And over the course of the last 15 years, when I've been available and in South Africa, I have delivered this talk to parents, I don't know, maybe to over 50 schools and now across 5 continents. And as I've done it, I've spoken to directors of sport. I've been speaking to coaches. I speak to the parents. I've done the research. And what it turns out that it seems one of the bigger problems that is being experienced at schools is some parents and how they're parenting their kids, how they're behaving around success and failure, how they're interfering with coaching, what's happening on WhatsApp groups, how parents are questioning coaches, getting involved in selection, and the amount of burnout, the amount of kids that are giving up sports. You know, the stats in States and Canada, we don't have research from anywhere else. They say that 40 million kids start playing sport when they join school. By the age of 13, 70% have given up. So 27 million kids, I think it's 27 million have given up. Of the 40 have given up. And the reason they asked, why are so many kids giving up sports? And the studies went and asked extensively, why are kids giving up? And the kids said there's 2 main reasons why we're giving up. And they said it's not the sport we're leaving. It's the experience in the sport that we don't like. And they said, so what is the experience? What is undermining your experience? And there's 2 things. One is coaches and the other one is parents. And then they went back with these studies and they said to the kids, okay, so what is it that your parents are doing or not doing that's undermining your experience and getting you to leave the sport? And what is it that coaches are doing? And there were 5 parenting things. There were 6, I think, coaching things. And I took those 5 key parenting pieces and then have, over the last 15 years, interrogated those with directors of sports, with coaches, with parents. And through these, I think there's been over 10,000 parents now that have sat in this 2-hour presentation that I'm constantly refining and getting the information back and understanding what lands, what doesn't land. And have now, 15 years later, I would love to give this full time, be talking to parents because of feedback that comes back and the parents say, thank you so much. I never realized this. I wasn't intentionally doing that. And I never realized. And now when I bring her with my kid is saying, wow, yes, Dad, that has been something that's been bugging me all the time. And it's that one shift of awareness, bringing it into the communication with the kid. And what's happening is the kids are saying they're loving their sport so much more. The more a kid loves the sport, the more they play, the better they get and the better results they deliver. And even more importantly, the more the parent-child relationship is growing because the parent is lining up with what the kid wants rather than being in struggle or resistance, sometimes open, sometimes unspoken resistance. So the unconscious parenting around sport is not only undermining, as we said, more than 1 in 3 kids, but it's undermining the relationship between parent and child. And that's one of the most important relationships that we're ever going to have in our lives. You know, we can get divorced from our partner and we can unfriend our friends, but you can never not be someone's parent once you've parented children.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime
Yeah.
relationship. There's too many of them that are unnecessarily strained. And the key
Yes.
here is necessarily, and it's just with some awareness of what are these things that happen. And we're so busy as parents. We're busy at work. There is more
Mm.
pressure, more stress, financial stress on us now than probably what there's ever been. There is more demand on our time as
Yes.
parents than what there's ever been. There's the amount of
Yes.
things that we've got to attend to in a day. We often have those fleeting moments with our kids, but in that fleeting
Mm.
moment with our kids, we're bringing our stress from work and finances and relationship or whatever into that
Yeah.
experience. And because we're going into it without having prepared or without thought, we just playing out old patterns or old behaviors or just natural styles, where
Mm-hmm.
actually if we change our style a little bit, it would actually benefit the kid, their performance, their experience, and our relationship a whole lot more.
I want to just pick up on something. I thought of a question while you were talking, and I don't want to lose it, which is why I had to write it down. Um, so, do you think? Well, okay, let me just put it in a more personal way. So, one of the things that I really struggled with my kids at school was the expectation from the school to participate, number one, to win, number two, and number three, to be available for every single clinic, every single extra training. So we weren't only asked like, and it wasn't a direct ask. It was this sort of undercurrent expectation, and I don't know if any other parents experienced that, but I certainly did, and I recognized it, and I got off that hamster wheel so quickly. I I stopped going, like my kids were not going to this coach is the best and does the clinics and because now we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we've got school Monday to Friday, and we've got sport Monday to Friday, but then we've got extra sport Monday to Friday, but then we've also got clinics on Saturday. And there was this really sort of weird undercurrent of if you're not attending these things, you're not going to be considered. Like, then you, like, tell me what your feeling is about schools with that sort of undercurrent of expectation. Like, what do we do
Okay.
as parents?
So I would go back again when you ask the question because every school would be different. But for me,
Yeah.
the organizing principle there is what is the purpose? What is the reason? What is the drive? So as parents, when we start realizing what is it that is driving my behavior, then we can start impacting, shifting things from the place that the behavior is originating. Now, it's the same thing with a school. There is a lot of unconscious schooling that goes on, or
Yeah.
maybe it's not unconscious, maybe it's just not explicit. So, yes, there are schools that they base their public image on how good the rugby team is.
Yeah.
And there are people that benefit. So maybe it's a school, maybe it's the old boys, maybe it's the headmaster. So what they
Yeah.
do is they go, let's do everything we can to get the best possible rugby results because then we look good and we get
Mm.
sponsorship, or we get our school ego stroked or whatever it might be.
Mm.
And what then it becomes about the school or that ego or that public image. It's not about the kid anymore. The kid who's a little
Yeah.
bit injured, who's a really good player, who actually we should be taking off the field because they risk injury in a really important game. If that's the unconscious narrative is we need to win in order to look good to be the best rugby school, the coach will then leave that kid on the field if they're the best player, but maybe there's a risk of them getting
Mm.
injured because we need our
Injured.
best player
Right.
on the field. So what is the informing principle? Why are kids being sent to all these, in the example you mentioned there, why are they getting sent to all these extra lessons? What's the agenda? And as long as we can surface the agenda and make it conscious,
Mm.
why
Mm.
are we doing it? And then make it explicit. Then parents can say, I understand if I send my kid to that school or they play in that team, this is why and this is what's required. I identify with that. Well, that's a mistake. Does my kid identify with that? Do
Identify
we
with
both
that.
buy into
100%.
that, or like, no, we don't want to be that? Well, then find a
Mm.
school that does cater for what we want. But I think there's not enough schools are clear on what is our stance around academics and why. What is our stance around, particularly around sport? Is it around participation? Is it about winning? What is the mix of the two? Because it's never really one or the other. And then you hire coaches and you train
Yes.
coaches accordingly.
Mm.
The
Mm.
coaches coach and select according to the school philosophy, whatever that might be. And
Yep.
then you've got a system that works and everything will work. And kids that don't fit there
Yes.
will go to another school or another team to where it
Yes.
lines up with what they want. But too often we've got a headmaster, a school, old boys, or coaches' egos that,
Mm.
because it really is the ego that is
Works
chasing
every day.
results. Almost
Yeah.
always. The
Yeah.
results is something that fuels the ego, because ego that I'm talking about here, that every single one of us has, is the ego
Mm.
drives us to want to look good through the eyes of others, and it's terrified of looking bad through the eyes of
Mm.
others. So
Mm.
ego is all about public success and what it
Yeah.
means for me,
Yeah.
and avoiding public failure because of what it says about me. And as
Oh,
soon as
absolutely.
we start being
Mm.
controlled, our behavior is influenced by
Yes.
winning and looking good or not losing and looking bad. That's the beginning of the coaches being most ineffective, are those who are ego and results oriented. Schools, parents, I really want to get to that. What happens
Mm.
to your child and your parent-child relationship when you get super excited about your kid winning and you get a bit depressed, unhappy, reprimanding, coachy oriented, or worse still, ignoring your kid when they do badly?
Yeah.
What drives you to do that? Because
Mm.
that's not very smart, and that creates a whole world of relationship problems, and it sets our kids up just to have a life being subject to and pressure, fear, anxiety, stress when it comes to results and public judgment of their results. We condition them to do that with that kind of parenting.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do for me quickly, because like all of that is like so meaty and lovely. I love it. I can see my husband making loads and loads of notes on this, loads of notes, because what we like to do in our podcast is we like to actually, at the end of the podcast, you can download a whole kind of what was spoken about, what were the main points, like what's the takeaway. So I feel like our listeners really are going to get so much meat out of this. But I want to just ask you if you could just give me, and I know it's going to be hard, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Give me one sentence or maybe a few sentences. What would you say to parents in terms of how they can actually offer support without creating pressure? Because we already know that the kids put so much pressure on themselves to perform because they want to make the school proud and they want to be the best and they want, they don't want to be left behind. And there's all these external pressures that are coming at them. So now give me a few sentences. And I know it's all in your course and we want to get to the parents. That's where we want to go. What would you offer? Like, how can parents offer support without creating extra pressure?
So probably the most impactful place for the majority of parents and kids would be, so there's one distinction that I make with every single athlete and team that I work with right up front, is a distinction between who you are as a person,
Yeah.
what your performance as a cricketer, rugby player, swimmer, athlete is, and the results of that. Those are
Okay.
three different entities.
Yeah.
It's important to grow yourself as a person, because you're not a cricketer, you're not a rugby player, you're not a salesman, you're a person, and that's one of the things which you happen to do. So that separation is so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And an equally important separation is my performance and my results.
Yeah.
The problems happen for athletes around their mental game is when they collapse either themselves and their results or their performance and their results. Because results it always happens in the future. So there's always pressure to succeed or fear of failure. That takes us out of the present moment, stuck in the future. We can't do anything about the results. So we've heard that one of the most important, I would say that probably the McLaren of sayings in sport is focus on the process and leave the result to look after itself.
Right.
Now, the thing about that saying is we've all heard it or read it. So it's like everybody owning a McLaren. It's not cool to own a McLaren if everyone has a McLaren. But the reality, it's still a flippin' McLaren. Can't get better.
No.
So for parents, it's grow your child. Grow their self-esteem. And their self-esteem is who I feel about myself, independent of what I do and the results of what I do. That's the single biggest gift we can give our kids, is to grow self-esteem, who I am as a human. Then when it comes to sport, focus on the process, on the effort, on the training, on the time, on the input. And if we focus and we celebrate the input, the process, the effort, the trying, the pitching up, then the kids will thrive in pitching up and just expressing themselves. So
love that.
The single best thing a parent can say to a kid, if I were to take one blanket statement, at the end of a game, win or lose, the kid comes back and as parent you say, you know what? I loved watching you play today.
That's my husband.
If they win,
100%.
I love watching you play. If you lose, because then they play. Now, here's one of the cruxes. When, as a parent, we get excited when our kid does well, and we behave differently and a little bit negative when they do badly. So we a little bit upset. We maybe reprimand them. We run a coaching workshop in the car on the way home, or worst still, we ignore them for a while. The message that sends to the kid is my love, and what a kid wants from a parent is some version of love and acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And when we behave differently about winning and losing, we make our love contingent upon results. The message our kid receives is, in order to make mom and dad happy, I need to do well. And in order to not make mom or dad unhappy, I mustn't do badly. A kid then plays for results to try and regulate mom and dad.
Yeah.
And
that sounds right.
so no parent deliberately does it. But the harsh reality is, if you get overexcited about winning and you behave differently and negatively when you lose, you have made your love contingent upon results in your kids' eyes. And it puts so much pressure on them. The converse, if you love watching them play, your kid will go out, not be attached to winning and losing, but they'll be attached to expressing themselves moment by moment in the process of playing the game. And the best athletes in the world, what makes them the best is not their talent, is not their strategy, is not their coach. It's their ability to remain fully present to the task at hand and to play the game and leave the results to look after itself. So by focusing on results, by loving just watching a kid play and focusing on that and devaluing success and failure. Success doesn't mean anything. As parents, sometimes we think if our kids succeed, it means I'm a better parent, because we attach our parenting prowess to our kids' results, which is sad. It's not 100%. The case. If your kid does well, it doesn't mean you're a good parent. And if your kid doesn't do well, it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. But subconsciously, we make it mean that as parents.
Absolutely.
So that's the long answer, is just love watching your kids play. Focus on the process. Keep building them as a person, and try and regulate yourself as much as possible around the results, because your kid can play. If they are 13 years old and they've had a bigger growth spurt than anyone else, they will win in any speed or strength sport. Doesn't mean they're doing well. And if they've been a late growth spurt and they're the smallest kid and they're getting knocked over the whole time and they're struggling to make the team, the struggle that they have to make the team and tackle that bigger guy and make away as the little kid, those lessons of resilience, of grit, of determination, of standing up,
Mm,
dusting yourself, coming
mm.
back again, those lessons end up making that kid the successful adult.
Yep.
And we know that early success up until the age of about 13 years old means absolutely nothing. There is no translation from early success to late success in sport. The studies have been done
Yep.
in South African rugby. Kids
Yep.
who make provincial under 13 rugby, only
Mm.
24% of
Yeah.
kids who make provincial under 13 go and make on to make provincial under 19. When I did
Wow.
my first master's thesis, players who played for SA schools and the Springbok rugby team, 1 in 10 Springboks played SA
Mm.
schools. It's changed a little bit now.
Yeah.
So early success means nothing.
I remember, there's two things I want to say. I remember with my kids, especially, they would often come to me and say, "Oh, Mom, so and so made Western Province, and so made the SA team under whatever it was," and I'd say, "Oh, that's very nice," and then I could kind of see there was this kind of like, "Well, why am I not doing that?" And then eventually, my husband kind of sat our kids down and went, "Who wants to peak when they're 10? Like, can we just get a hold of ourselves? Like, we've got our whole lives and we want to peak at various stages of our life, right? We don't just want to peak when we're 10 or when we're 15. We want to actually have various stages of our lives when we peak. And not everyone is going to peak when they're 10. Not everyone is going to peak when they're 13. Not everyone is going to peak. Like, I only know some people who are peaking now as they hit 50. Fabulous. Fabulous.
I'm waiting for my peak still.
I think you've hit a number of peaks, Paddy. Let's just be honest. I mean, we just have to read your bio. I think you're doing okay. The other thing I wanted to say, and it was, you were speaking about when that kid walks off the field. And the one thing, and I must say, my parents have learned a lot, from their parenting, but also from my parenting, watching me parent. And the one thing my mom said to me, the one day, very early on, she said to me, "My love, if your kids walk off the field and they say, 'Mom, how did I play?' The answer is always, 'You played great.' But how do you feel you played? How do you think you played?" And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, am I not doing that?" She was like, And I was like, "Oh, okay." The other thing my dad said to me was, do not give your opinion of the match unless your kid asks for it. Because you're not there to give an opinion of the match. You're there to watch your kid play. And you're there to enjoy their enjoyment of playing the game. And I was like, cute. And I must say, it changed the way I thought about it. And if my kid was in the car and they had maybe lost a hockey match or maybe hadn't placed in their swimming, they might be a bit down and they'd be quite quiet. I wouldn't invade that time, that quiet time. I would just be quiet with them and I'd sit with them in it and kind of face it with them. And they would say, "I'm really upset. We didn't win that match. And I really felt like I played my heart out and I just didn't get the result that I wanted." And I would just sit and nod and say, "Okay, that's okay. These things happen. The key is that you still played your best. You gave it your all. And that is what matters. You know that you left it there on the field."
Yeah, and I think some of the examples you're giving there, Jax, it's very personality driven, that your kids have a certain need, you have a certain way. And the one thing about this parenting journey and this parenting
Yeah.
course that I've created is it's no parent likes being told what to do. No parent, because we're all trying our best. And
Yeah, for sure.
there
For
isn't
sure.
there isn't one way that
No.
works for everybody.
Yep.
You've given quite a few examples, and it's very common for parents who've been successful athletes are almost always chilled, relaxed, like you're describing with their kids, because you've been there, you've understood it, and you've actually satisfied your own sporting prowess, success, ego, that we don't need to then live that through our kids. But there are
Exactly.
some
Been there, done
parents
that. Don't need
who
it.
haven't played a sport, they haven't been there, done that. They're not quite sure how to. They want to support their kids
Navigate
the
it.
best, but we're not sure. And it's, people say people said there's no parenting manual, and I've always sort of subscribed to that. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I've in 15 years eventually pulled together this course where,
Yeah.
when it comes to parenting your kids around sport, actually there is a manual of principles that they work. And it's,
Yeah.
you've got to figure, how does this principle apply to me? And it applies to each person differently.
Yeah.
When it comes to parenting advice, and I sort of start off with this, but I want to, everyone, when the parent falls pregnant, their friends who've already given birth, they come and they're full of parenting advice. Every parent knows there is so much parenting advice out there, and we all know that none of that parenting advice
No.
actually ends up being good for us.
Yeah.
There is one piece of parenting advice that holds true for every single parent. There's only one I've ever come across, and it's this: that every single parent, we will f our kids up.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Every one
And
of
they
us.
will tell you.
And our job is just to f up as little as possible. And that's where conscious parenting comes
Not
in.
a truer statement has been uttered. I will tell you that, Paddy, because when I gave up giving parenting advice years ago, like, you know what, I kind of believe that every kid is different, and the manual for each kid is different. So you have to make sure that you look at each kid and figure out your way of parenting. Like, my way is not going to work for you, and your way is not going to work, because my kid is not your kid. My kid is my kid. And each kid is different.
And the thing about parenting advice is, the more parenting advice you give out, the more you lose your friends, because no one wants it.
That's a true story. I know you have to go, and I'm sad you have to go, because I feel like I need like another hour with you. But I just want to, I want to just sum it up. I know that we want to kind of create an environment where parents and kids have longevity. The relationship has longevity, and we want to kind of make sure that our kids and parents are maintaining focus that kind of leads to long-term development, not only development on the sports field, but actually that bleeds into life, because we know that sport gives us many lessons, right? It is a model that we can use in life. Whatever we learn on the sports field, we can actually learn in life.
Absolutely.
Use in life. So if we're going to sum it up, how would you say we can help maintain focus for long-term development and well-being rather than short-term outcomes? Like, I know it could be a long answer. Just try and like give me the short one.
It starts with that question. Any journey starts with a good question. How can I parent even more effectively that will serve my different children in their unique way, that's going to help them become the best version of themselves, that's going to leave them with high self-esteem? And the answer is going to be unique for each one of us as parents, but it starts with a question. And there are some fundamentals, like in sport, there are fundamentals. I've been a mental coach now for over 20 years in 20 different sports, majority of which I have no clue about. I currently coach the world chess champion. I know absolutely nothing about chess, and year and a half into coaching him once a week, every week for a year and a half, I still know absolutely nothing. But the principles apply. And I'm just going to wrap up with the five of the main things that I highlight in this parents course that I've produced. And it's not a parenting
Please.
advice. It's
Amazing.
here are principles. Here are why these things are problem. Here's the impact on the child, and here's the impact on your relationship with your child. And here is some ideas, but you go and figure, how does this particular thing apply or not apply to you? And we've spoken about the one already. How do we behave? How do we speak about winning, around winning and losing? That's the key piece, is not to make our love
Yeah.
love and acknowledgement contingent upon results because of what it creates for our kid.
Yeah.
You mentioned the other one. This is unrealistic expectations of perfection. We want our kid to be better, have less nerves, perform more consistently, do better. The amount of parents that come to me and say, will you help my kid? They're so good in training, but when they get into the game or key moment, the nerves get to them and their performance drops off. And they tell me the kid is 10 or 12 or 14. It's like, dude, that is perfectly normal for that developmental age. Nobody is without pressure and fear, anxiety. Even the best in the world, their performance is negatively impacted under those big moments. So what you're describing your kid going through is perfectly normal. The problem is your expectation. Your kid should be so far ahead of their developmental years around their mental, emotional management. That's fine if they're making those mistakes. That suggests they're human, which is great. The third, particularly for dads, is to figure a healthy relationship with coaching. Kids generally don't want parents over coaching them, parents involved in the coach's coaching. There's some parents who do know more about the sport than what the school's coach might know. And how do you navigate that dynamic so that the kid gets the best coaching and the parent-child relationship stays intact? But one of the third thing that really undermines relationships between parents and kids is overcoaching, especially something like running a coaching workshop on the car home from the game is just an absolute no-no, but goodness me, dads, it's the most tempting thing in the world to do. Criticizing, it's something that happens strangely. I don't know parent sets out to intentionally criticize their kid, but this comes from kids. It's when my parent has, and normally, why do we as parents criticize our kid? It starts with our own anxiety. We don't quite feel in control of what our kid's doing, so we step in to try and regulate our kid's behavior to make us feel better. We criticize often because it's our own stress release spilling out over onto our kid. Or it's an old pattern. Many of us parented by parents who thought by putting that pressure and stress of criticism on us would make us stronger and more resilient. And then, I've already had a little bit of a go at dads, but what moms tend to be more guilty of is the over pampering, the helicopter parent and the lawnmower parent. And that's the parent that is constantly hovering over their kid, or even worse still, the parent who moves out in front like a lawnmower and just moves all the obstacles out the way so the kid has a smooth journey. Both of those parents, and often it's moms, the message they're saying is, I don't trust you. I don't think you can handle this yourself. And that's the message it gets. So it really undermines their development, really undermines their confidence. And as their confidence and their development drops, we then helicopter more and we lawnmower more because they're really not able to. And it just perpetuates an endless cycle of a kid who doesn't have self-esteem, is full of doubt, doesn't have the independence, very insecure within their own abilities. So there's just sort of 5 things. We spoke about the early specialization as well. I just want to say it again. It doesn't matter how good your kid is up to the age of 13, it means nothing. The most important thing is if they're enjoying the sport, they will play more. And the more they play, the better they get. When the research was done, when it came to winning, interestingly, the 2 big studies in the United States and Canada, they asked kids, why do you play sport? And winning ranked number 8th in the one study and number 11th on the priority list in the other study. We spoke earlier, most schools, most coaches rank winning as first because I'm a coach myself. If my athlete wins, everyone thinks I'm a good coach. So I want my athlete to win. It's all about me and my ego, and winning serves our ego. But winning is an adult agenda. It's not a child's agenda. It only becomes important to the child when us as parents make it important and get super excited. We then say to our kid, now you've got to go and win. Now you take the pressure of making me happy. And we start attaching people. They learn a life lesson of, I am validated if I win and do well. And that sets up a life of difficulty for them and mental struggle. So what rated number one in those two studies was fun. As parent, if your kid is enjoying themselves, you are winning and they are winning.
I love that. And I think we'll wrap up with that. So thank you, Paddy. I feel like I do need like another hour to pick your brain. I've made so many copious notes that my husband will know nothing about because there's like all over the page. But I cannot thank you enough for the time and for taking the time to come and speak to me. And I'm so excited for the course that you're going to be leading and doing and putting into schools and implementing. And I want to follow up with you at a later date and see how it's going and see, what are the outcomes? What have you noticed? What have you seen? I mean, I cannot wait. I tell you, I'm very excited about it. Thank you again. I really appreciate the time and I hope you have a superb day further. It's been wonderful talking to you. Awesome. Okay. Cheers for now, Paddy.
Thanks to the listeners who listened all the way through. Cheers.